Welcome back to another epic journey into the past. Today we're traveling to the ancient world of King Solomon, one of the wisest, wealthiest rulers ever to live, and his legendary encounter with the mysterious and powerful Queen of Sheba. This story has everything: intrigue, diplomacy, supernatural events, and of course, wisdom. If you thought ancient history was just dusty old books, think again. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about Solomon. This guy was a big deal, like really big. He wasn't just the king of Israel, he was the OG wise king. And by OG, I mean the original, the best, the wisest ruler you could imagine. His kingdom stretched far and wide, known for peace, prosperity, and wealth beyond imagination. Solomon wasn't just ruling a city, he was ruling an empire. But what made him legendary wasn't just the gold, the palaces, or the fact that he had the fanciest throne around. It was his wisdom. According to legend, Solomon was given divine wisdom by God, so his ability to solve problems and make decisions was unparalleled. Imagine someone who's smarter than every philosopher, scientist, and strategist you know, all rolled into one. People traveled from all over the world just to hear his wisdom. And we're not talking about little bits of advice. We're talking about game-changing decisions that shaped nations. It's no wonder he got the attention of some of the most powerful rulers around. Enter the Queen of Sheba. Let's shift our focus to the other star of this story, the Queen of Sheba. Now, the Queen of Sheba wasn't just some ordinary ruler. She was the head of one of the richest kingdoms of the ancient world. Her land, believed to be in southern Arabia, possibly modern-day Yemen or Ethiopia, was famous for its wealth, particularly in gold, incense, and spices. And this queen? She was a master diplomat, a shrewd ruler, and, according to tradition, incredibly intelligent. Now, let's talk about a unique character in this story, one that often gets overlooked but plays a crucial role. Enter the hoopoe bird. Yep, a bird. But this isn't just any bird. Solomon's kingdom wasn't just filled with humans and wealth. He had dominion over animals, jinn, and even the wind. Among his vast army of subjects was this clever little bird, the hoopoe, known for its intelligence and swiftness. And this bird, believe it or not, becomes one of the key messengers in the story of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba.
Where is the hoopoe? Why is he not among the ranks?
Now, Solomon was known to be very attentive, even in matters like this. When the hoopoe bird failed to show up for roll call, Solomon took notice. But before he could get too concerned, the bird returned, flapping its wings in a rush, as though it had something important to report.
Sire, I have seen something that you are unaware of. I have traveled to a land far beyond the horizon, a land called Sheba. There I found a queen, and her people are great in power and wealth, but they worship the sun instead of the one true God.
Solomon wasn't just a king, he was a prophet too. And when he heard about Sheba's people worshiping the sun, he knew this wasn't just a diplomatic opportunity. It was a mission, a chance to spread the truth about the one God. So instead of sending soldiers or emissaries, he chose to send a message of peace and faith, delivered by none other than the hoopoe bird. Now, this isn't just a bird doing errands. The hoopoe was serving as Solomon's trusted messenger, and in ancient times, when there were no planes, cars, or telephones, the bird's speed and accuracy were invaluable. Imagine the sheer distance it had to cover, from Solomon's court in Jerusalem to the distant kingdom of Sheba. The hoopoe eventually arrived at the palace of the Queen of Sheba and delivered Solomon's message. And that's when the real intrigue began. When the Queen of Sheba received Solomon's letter, she was curious. This was no ordinary letter. It came from a king whose wisdom was legendary. And it wasn't just an invitation to meet. It was a challenge to her faith, a call to worship the one true God. The queen wasn't one to act impulsively, so she consulted with her advisors weighing her options carefully. Her advisors were ready to go to war. They saw Solomon's message as a threat, but the Queen of Sheba was far wiser. Instead of responding with force, she chose diplomacy. She decided to visit Solomon herself, to see for her own eyes if his wisdom and power were as great as the legends claimed. And so her caravan was prepared, laden with riches, spices, and gifts, as she set out on the long journey to meet the man who dared challenge her. Here's where the story gets really interesting. You see, Solomon wasn't just a wise king. He had command over beings called jinn, powerful creatures capable of doing things beyond human capabilities. And Solomon decided to use this power to pull off one of the most mind-blowing tricks in the ancient world. Before the Queen of Sheba arrived, Solomon asked his court a seemingly impossible question.
Who among you can bring me the queen's throne before she arrives?
Now, keep in mind, her throne was a massive, ornate structure back in Sheba, hundreds of miles away. This wasn't just about moving a piece of furniture. This was about demonstrating the sheer extent of Solomon's power. One of the jinn, known for their immense strength and speed, steps forward and says, "I can bring it to you before you even rise from your seat." Now that's fast. Imagine being able to transport something that massive across entire deserts in the blink of an eye. But Solomon, he had an even bigger card to play. Then, another of Solomon's subjects steps forward, a being who possessed knowledge of the divine book. He says, "I can bring it to you in the blink of an eye." And just like that, snap. The queen's throne is transported across the entire world, from her palace in Sheba to Solomon's court, before she even knew what had happened. The Queen of Sheba arrives, her caravan glittering with gold and spices, but nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to see inside Solomon's court. As she steps into his palace, she's immediately struck by its magnificence. The architecture, the wealth, the sheer scale of everything. It's like nothing she's ever seen. But then, something catches her eye. Her own throne, sitting right in front of her in Solomon's court. She stops in her tracks, completely stunned. How could this be? Her throne was back in Sheba, and yet here it was, right before her. She examines it closely, trying to determine if it's truly her throne or just an illusion. Through this extraordinary act, Solomon showed the Queen of Sheba that while she was powerful, there were forces greater than both of them, forces that could only be understood through faith and wisdom. And this wasn't the only surprise he had in store for her. The Queen of Sheba doesn't waste time. She begins testing Solomon with a series of tough questions, philosophical, practical, and religious questions. She's trying to gauge whether this king really is as wise as everyone claims. And what does Solomon do? He answers every single one, with ease. Now, Solomon wasn't done impressing the Queen of Sheba just yet. There's a famous part of the story where Solomon decides to take things to the next level, showing off not just his wisdom, but the incredible splendor of his palace. Solomon had a special part of his palace designed with a crystal-clear glass floor, but to the naked eye, it looked like a shimmering pool of water. When the Queen of Sheba stepped inside, she thought she was about to walk into water. Naturally, she lifted her robes to avoid getting wet. But as soon as she set foot on it, she realized there was no water. It was just perfectly polished glass. The craftsmanship and ingenuity left her stunned, and it was clear that Solomon's wisdom extended beyond the mind. It was reflected in every corner of his magnificent palace. According to old tradition, the Queen of Sheba ultimately accepts Solomon's faith. She understands that the power and wisdom Solomon possesses come from God, and she submits to the one true God. This moment is not just a diplomatic victory, it's a spiritual one. So what happened to these two legendary figures after their fateful meeting? Solomon continued his reign as one of the most powerful and wise kings ever known. His influence stretched far beyond Israel, and even today his name is synonymous with wisdom and divine understanding. As for the Queen of Sheba, her legacy also endures. In Ethiopia, there are stories and legends that suggest she may have had a child with Solomon named Menelik, who went on to become a great ruler in his own right. According to Ethiopian tradition, the Queen of Sheba's descendants ruled a mighty empire, and they traced their lineage back to this powerful queen and her connection to Solomon. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the legendary story of Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to like and subscribe for more incredible tales from history, legends, and beyond. And hey, let me know in the comments. If you could ask Solomon one question, what would it be? Or maybe, what would you have brought to impress the Queen of Sheba? Let's get those creative minds going.